Hi everybody, my name is NIVIRO and welcome in my studio. Today I will be giving you insight in one of my oldest projects named The Ghost. So, first of all, something quite important, this project has been made in, I think, by the end of 2016. So I wasn't able to open it completely as it was. There were some plugins like Spire and, for example, Contact 5, which I now have as Contact 6. It wasn't compatible anymore. So I had to redo some sounds, import some stems. So I hope to still let you show you how I made it and to go as deep as possible into the project file. Let's start with the vocal. I think this is one of the key elements of The Ghost, and it's actually quite simple how we did it. It has a main layer, the same thing but left, the same thing but right, a harmony, some whispering words, a couple of spoken phrases. This is also a phrase but with a vocoder. I'll come back to that later. And a reverse reverb effect for the fade in of the vocal. Now, as you can see, I didn't do a lot of processing on each single track because most of it happens in the vocal group. Anyway, nowadays, just remember this is back in 2016. I was, I think, 19 years old, more or less. Nowadays, I always do a low cut on each track and also an LA2 compressor. I mainly use the Waves plugins for those. Anyway, let's start with the vocal.
I can see you from behind.
Oh, by the way, you don't have to rip this vocal. I'll be dropping the official a cappella down there in the description or even lower in the comments. So feel free to play along with it. And if you make something with it, a mashup, a remix, whatever, DM me. I would really want to hear it. I really want to hear your creations. So I got the main vocal at minus 80 dB. I got the left and the right at minus 15. So they're all hard panned to both left and right. This is basically to give like a shimmering feel. The Ghost is a Halloween track and it must have like a darkish vibe. And if the vocal is coming from the center, it doesn't feel like it's a ghost singing around you. And that was the whole idea, to make it super wide, but still pleasant to listen to. The only thing I did with the vocal is some time adjustments, so both left, right, and center line up properly. And then we have the harmony.
See you.
I think that's a cool addition because when you only used like the main melody for the vocal, it doesn't really pop out. So we decided together with Eliza, because we were writing this one together here in the studio back in 2016, to do now and then a harmony. I think we did it twice. And on some other parts, for example, here is like an empty space that we fill it up with the same word we ended with, but whispered. And I always pen each a different way. So next up are the spoken phrases. Oh, by the way, the laughs. I think that was after a failed take, and that's basically her real laugh. And I told her, like, come on, let's do a couple more, because this might really fit the vibe of The Ghost. Then we got some other spoken words.
Are you a friend? I am you.
So this part is not a primary part, it's a layered part of the phrase noise, and I pitched it down to give it like a demonish feel. And then we have the phrase noise.
You know, I am you.
So I wanted it to make it more psycho, and therefore I used the vocoder with a noise as carrier to give it like a really weird sound, so that it's not. Yeah, let me just show you how it would sound if I turn it off.
You know, I am you.
So that doesn't have a lot of character, that doesn't sound like a ghost. So
You know, I am you.
So that's basically the reason why I did that. And then we have the last vocal layer. It's basically a reverb of the vocal and reversed. So that's it with vocal. I did some processing on top of it, but not that much this time. I used an EQ to cut off all the lows. She's a girl, so we can literally make a huge dip here to make her sound even more thin, because the ghost has to be a really thin sounding voice. It's not a real person around you. It's something what's happening up here. And then I used some compression from my SSL G-Bus compressor. It's a hardware unit, but there are plenty of great plug-in versions of it. Honestly, nowadays I always go for either the 1176 or the LA2 compressor instead of the glue compressor. So next up is the De-Esser. It's for the harsh sounding frequencies, to take them away. This is a plugin you'll see me using on basically every bus I use. It's the SSL channel strip, and honestly I used it a lot in my earlier work, but nowadays I don't use this plugin anymore. I have a real SSL channel strip on my right hand side here, so I use that one instead. Basically what I used is a little bit of compression as well here as well, and a little bit of enhancement of the high end, but like the really sparkling high. So yeah, that's it there. And also one plugin I don't use anymore but really worked on this one is the Waves NLS. And what the NLS does, it's basically it mimics the way how a sound gets summed as if it was used on a big console. For example, an SSL 4000. It gives a more glued vibe, a little bit. It has a little bit of harmonic distortion, and it really worked to darken up the whole vibe of the song. So I basically used this one on each different group, as you can see. And I sent them to all different VCA groups, which come together in a master section here, where they are all summed down like it has been done in a console. So that was the vocal. Next up is the drop, and the drop is something I didn't really do before. I used an a question answer scheme to have like a more, sorry for my words, fucked up vibe in the whole track. Like it's constantly asking something, and then the other guy is screaming, and then it's always going left to right, if you know what I mean. Well, the first drop layer, I'm sorry, I cannot show you that. That was made with Spire. I don't have Spire installed on my computer anymore. So I have my bounce layer. I can still show you the MIDI here though. So nothing special going on here. One thing, what I always do is I never draw notes with my mouse or so. I always play it on my keyboard, and that makes it... For some reason, I come up with other ideas when I play it with my hands than when I just like write it down. Then the second drop layer, basically the same story. It also was made with Spire, but I have my stem renderer. So these are like the only two layers which are constantly playing. These are both layers to thicken up the sound, so they're not primary in the whole drop. So drop 3 is a harmony on the melody you already heard. And that one has been made one of my favorite plugins, Silent One. I might assume that you're already stealing my whole preset, so I mean, why not walk through it? The distortion is cranked up completely, the phaser is used really gently, and the chorus is there to widen up the sound. I used a sawtooth with all the voices, but that's mainly for the volume. It's just a little bit louder to crank it into the filter module with the drive and with distortion, so it gets a little bit. It just gets a little bit harder distorted in general. I also used a sine, which is detuned and sounds really wide in stereo, but it's pitched up with 1 octave, so it doesn't affect anywhere with a sublayer or so. Something which can be really interesting for you to know is that I used a pitch envelope to make it like pop every single note. So it gives it a really attacky sound. So listen carefully to the beginning of each note. It has a laser kind of vibe, and I think that's what makes it stand out of the whole lead bundle. Let me just show you when I turn it off. So it makes the whole track more aggressive, and I think that's something what was really needed for it. So the 4th drop layer is also made in Silent One. Then the 5th layer. That one is one of the few presets I used. It's from the... Wait, let me look. It's from the Alonso Hartwell Silent Sound Set bank. Yeah. So yeah, it fits in there, so why not use a preset? Then the 6th drop is also from the same pack and another preset, but this is the answering part. And then 7th drop. And this one is a lead from my own preset pack. Anyway, I already showed you this kind of lead because it's, I mean, you can already copy it anyway. But it's also explained in the RB Alone tutorial. And then I have 3 different drop steps. They're all from the, I think, the first Cashmere pack, because like the other 2 weren't released back then. So basically I didn't do any kind of processing on these layers. Now, you know, nowadays I would do always at least a low cut or a little bit of enhancing of the frequencies in general with an EQ. But yeah. And then we have like the main drop bus layer where it all comes together. We've got the unfiltered audio indent. This is one of my favorite distortion plugins. It has basically everything. You have a soft clip, hard clip, wavefold, overfold, and you have it twice, so you can like put a filter in between to give it a resonance. So yeah, it has everything. You can distort it twice. You can distort it really gently with a really analog feel, but you can like overdrive it as hell. That, yeah, it's really versatile. Next up is an equalizer, cutting off all the lows and doing some weird stuff at the high end. Nothing really special. Then we got the OTT, but really gently used. Then we have my distresses, and those are 2 hardware units back in my rack. I think UAD has a plugin of those. I haven't tried the plugin, but the real units rock. So you might try the plugin, definitely. Then the SSL channel strip with a low cut again, because when you use some distressors or some OTT, some new low end might occur. So we're cutting it away here. And then I also did some really weird ass, and then I also did some really weird EQing on the. Yeah, let's not go too deep into that because I don't understand myself either. Then I have my sidechain compression, and that one is linked to this sidechain layer. I mean, it's not turned on or so, but it just gets its audio from here, so it gets sidechained on a drop. And then again, we send it to the NLS channel. Next up, we have our lead group, and these are basically the melody. Let me show it to you. So these are the MIDI notes. The first one is a silent 1 layer. And that's the one from my preset pack I have. The next one is my Virus TI2. You know, I couldn't recall the sounds. I have a plugin for that, but yeah, I mean, that also has a new version. So it doesn't work in this project, but I can show you the sound of how I made. So basically the Virus sound is a bit dull sounding. It's a little bit muddy, but it really glues together all the different sounds to make it more stand out and be more uniform, like to have a better end result. Then next up is a silent layer. And this is basically a harmony layer, so it's playing the normal melody plus a counter melody. That is also to thicken up the whole sound, because this is still the main lead. And then I have my Virus B, which I also couldn't recall. My Virus B is basically that one. So yeah, nothing too special going on here. My lead processing isn't that other than you might expect. First of all, we start with a low cut, then we go to the OTT, also quite gently used. Then we go to the API 2500. That's basically a unit I use nowadays on my percussion and not on lead. But still, it pushes it together and makes it glue a little bit better. Then we have the SSL EQ and compression and expander. Then we have some sidechain compression, and then again the NLS. Next up are the basses. So yeah, I cannot show you how I made this kind of sound, but yeah, at least you can hear it. Then I have a Serum wobble bass. Then I have the main sub layer. Oh, by the way, if you want to see how I made the sub layer, it's not that special. Nowadays I also do it another way. I use mostly Operator. It's a stock Ableton plugin, which allows you to harmonize how your saw must sound. So you can basically escape your own wave shape. Yeah, it's a little bit more flexible than doing it with like a sawtooth and a sine wave and silent. Anyway, The top bass sounds like this. So it sounds really aggressive, but of course it's a dark track made especially for Halloween, and it wasn't even released on Halloween. Nice. Okay, next up is my Moog. It's a Sub 37 and it's over there. This one. Also, I couldn't recall the sound of that synth, so I rendered it out. And it has a really weird sound you might not expect, but it's blurry, it's muddy, but it thickens up the whole bass line. And it didn't do too much around the bass. This is just an automation for the, I suppose, the intro. Yeah. So nothing special going on here. This can be erased. Also, again, a channel strip, sidechain compression, and the NLS. So that we can move on to the pads. Also, these pads are made with Spire, so I sadly cannot show them you. I can show you the MIDI, but yeah. And also there isn't really special stuff happening, just a low cut around 200 Hertz, some equalizing, and that's it. Then the acoustic part. This is one of my favorite parts always, because I love to incorporate some acoustic sounds like a piano, some strings, a choir. I think those sounds define my music genre, or at least the music I make. Now let's start with a female choir. Then we have the piano. Also, this MIDI, I didn't even quantize it because I wanted to have the lush, offbeat feeling. And then the music box, sadly I lost the bank, so I have no clue which one it is, but I can show you the... but at least I can show you the final result. And then some strings. A male choir. Also, please do not kill me for this equalizer. I wouldn't do it myself anymore, but back then I was stupid, I was young. Anyway, just don't boost it that high. That doesn't really do anything. And then some cello. And then the kick, it's basically a really simple Cashmere kick. It's from the Yamu pack. It's a kick from Yamu, his track Yamu. And then the kick, it's basically a Cashmere kick, the same kick as used in Yamu. It's a really short kick, it has a lot of punch, a lot of low end, so I used that one in so many different tracks. Nowadays I make my own kicks using Silent One, but still. I used a little bit of R-bass to enhance the low end. Again, a really weird EQ. This is also for the intro. Then we have the SSL channel strip again and the NLS. Then the percussion. I don't think something special is going on here, but let's just walk through it. So yeah, nothing really special going on there as well. And I also barely did some processing on top of it. So just a little bit of low cut, some EQ adjustments, and that's it. And the FX, well, I noticed that something was missing, and those are basically the two layers. As I already told you in the beginning, I made this track with Contact 5, and nowadays I have Contact 6 and I cannot find Contact 5 anywhere to install it, at least legally. So yeah, I completely lost the sounds of these layers. So I have no clue what it was. In the original one, you can hear something's playing, but I couldn't analyze myself what I did there. So yeah, I cannot explain those. It's just a mystery for me as it is for you now. So the other sounds, yeah, they're all just full up FX. So yeah, next up is the noise layer, and this is a layer which is often either overused or completely underestimated, in my opinion. Anyway, so we start off with, by the way, this is the drop. Like, this is the beginning of the drop, I think. Yeah. So the whole group has like a sidechain, gentle sidechain compression on it. Yeah, so first we have the exhaust, then we have a down sweep. This is already a sweep up. Another sweep up. A down sweep. Oh wait, this is also a sweep up. A crash for the extra impact on the drop. Another down sweep, but this one's really gently used. And this is also something really important. Like always when I give a question, remember in the drop when I said question answer, like every question there's a white noise layer, and with the answer there's no white noise playing. So it also plays with the whole vibe of the track. And then we have a small silent riser.
I am you.
And then we have like the latest layer. Nowadays, the impacts are under my FX tab. But these are just cinematic drums, like deep impacts.
I am you.
So yeah, this is basically how I composed the Ghost. And I always use, that might be interesting, I always use at least 2 different buses. And that's basically a reverb bus and a delay bus. Nowadays, I often use 2 reverb buses, like one exclusively for the lead and one exclusively for everything else. And the reverb in all my tracks are mostly made with the 960L. It's a hardware reverb from Lexicon. I think that one is built in 2003, but it's the best sounding machine I've ever heard. It outperforms Rome, Valhalla, and all the other DSP, VST reverbs. Then, oh yeah, just a low cut and some sidechain compression for in the drop to also make it more bounce. Then we have the delay layer. Usually I use 1/4 and a ping pong, so I have no clue if it's wrong recalled or if I did it. Yeah, or I don't know if something went wrong, but I usually do 1/4 and a ping pong delay. Then some low and high cuts and also some sidechain compression. And then we head on to the master. And I also must say that I had to adjust some stuff in the master because some other plugins wouldn't load in. So I tried to make it as close as possible with the original. But there are still stuff in here which I wouldn't do myself anymore in my recent tracks. For example, the NLS, amazing plugin, might work really well, but nowadays I don't use it anymore. What I do use is, and this is basically always my first element in my master chain, is my Avalon 80 2022 preamp. It's basically, I route completely master signal through the preamp and route it back to my converter to give it like an... It colors the sound. Because it's a tube preamp, you can hear that it adds some extra value to the sound. It makes it more rich, more full, and it makes it also sound really analog, if you know what I mean. Next up is the low air. I don't use this plugin anymore on my master chain, but it might work really well in yours. The most important thing, don't overuse it. Like, use it really gently. The first time you use it, you probably crank up all the parameters and you'll be like, whoa, this is main stage shit. It is not on a big system, so use it really gently and don't overdo it, because it might completely ruin your mix. Next up, also this one wasn't recalled properly, but I mostly use the stereo widener, just a little bit. The mono maker around 150 Hz. I do it again here. And mostly I also EQ it here to have like a mid and a side EQ. But I didn't really spend time to do that. Next up is my hardware EQ. It's my Manly Massive Passive. It sounds amazing. There are really good plugins of it. So I really recommend trying it yourself. Then the Elysia Alpha. That's also my hardware compressor. Also there are amazing plugins which mimic the sound really well. Then an EQ. This wasn't originally on here, but I did it to like equalize the sound to the original master. Also this is mostly used in my current master chains. I use Studio Rack for every wave plugins. basically because I run a SoundGrid server downstairs to offload my computer so I don't have glitches or audio stutters, because I always work on an analog way, and if there's somewhere a glitch during the rendering, I have to redo it completely from scratch until the glitch is not there. So first I use the API 2500, which I have in real here, but I didn't use it too much on this master chain because I already had my alpha playing here. The MV2, this is a really interesting plugin. It's usually I use my usually I use an OTT on my master, but somehow it always does something weird with either my low ends or my mids, and I needed another kind of thing that does like upward and downward compression, and the MV2 does it. I don't think it's made for mastering, but it brings up the lows, the low levels, and it pulls down the high levels, but really gently and not like a compressor would do. So it gives more loudness to the track in general, also on the more silent parts. Next up is the Kramer tape for some additional distortion and harmonics and all that kind of stuff, just to make it sound a little bit better, fuller, and more old school, actually, more darkish. Then Vitamin. This is one of my favorite discoveries of last year. I use it always on my master chain because somehow it really brings up a sparkle in the track and brings forward the transients. Wait, let me show you on and off.
I am you.
So as you can hear, without it sounds really dull. With it sounds energetic. The track lives, and that's something really important for me. Then to end this series of master chain, I use the L3 multi-maximizer, but also really gently used, like this curve isn't curve used.
I am you.
So I use it really gently because I head on to my final limiter and maximizer, and that's the UAD Precision Maximizer, which gives me like the loudness I want. So this is basically the whole track, The Ghost. So that's it. This is my track, The Ghost. I really hope you have a great Halloween. I hope you loved this tutorial and walkthrough. And if you have any questions, drop it down there in the comments, and I'll try to be there as much as possible to answer your questions. So, hey, see you next time. Ciao. Peace.